Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to slip into a story that starts with a plane ticket I bought in secret and a hope I guarded like a candle in the wind. Picture this room as it is now, lamplight pooling on your table, a gentle hiss from the kettle. That soft blanket of nighttime where thoughts sound louder but kinder. I'm Evelyn Carter, and I'm going to tell you what happened the week I tried to surprise my son for his birthday, and instead surprise myself with what a mother can still learn at 63. Here's a hard little truth to hold in your palm. Love doesn't guarantee access. Sometimes the door you built with your whole life has a brand new lock you didn't know existed. So before you settle in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I share here. And in the comments, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing our little constellation of night owls. Now, switch off the lights, let a fan hum softly in the background if you'd like, and let's begin tonight's journey together. The Texas heat greeted me like a wall with manners. Still a wall. Dallas-Fort Worth glowed with that airport twilight, polished floors, squeaky luggage wheels, distant laughter. I clutched my tote. Cookies inside. The good tin, blue with a dent at the corner, like it was a boarding pass to the past. My husband, Thomas, has been gone more than 20 years, and I raised our boy, Daniel, on Sunday pancakes and stubbornness. Flying scares me less than silence, so I flew. The Uber driver was chatty in the way men are when they've had 3 coffees and 1 podcast. He pointed at highways and barbecue smoke, and I nodded politely while my heart jogged ahead of the car. I rehearsed what I'd say when Daniel opened the door. Happy birthday, followed by the smell of warm chocolate chips and a hug that bridged too many missed calls. I had even practiced not crying. Spoiler, practice is a liar. By the time we rolled into his complex in Austin, the sky was a watercolor, peach melting into navy, and toddlers were throwing a ball that ignored instructions. The building looked modern enough to have a gym I'd never use and plants that never shed. "He's done well," I whispered to no one, and my chest warmed like a light switched on. Elder wisdom of the day, joy can be a preview. It's not a contract. I climbed the stairs, counting them because counting is a poor woman's courage. Apartment 2B. The welcome mat was new. My knuckles hovered. That's when I saw it. A sheet of paper taped to the door, handwriting elegant the way menus lie. "Honeymoon, do not disturb." The words were so simple they hurt my teeth. For a breath, maybe 2, I thought. Wrong door. Then the world steadied just enough to land the punch. Honeymoon meant married. Married meant a wedding. A wedding meant vows I didn't hear, pictures I'll never see, a first dance to a song I can only guess at. I sat down on the hallway bench like it had been placed there by an angel with sarcasm. The cookie tin slid off my lap, lid clinking open, coins of sweetness rolling onto the concrete. Funny how a cookie can volunteer to be a metaphor. Odd fact for the insomniacs. Airport codes look random, but AUS really is Austin, while DFW got branded for both Dallas and Fort Worth, a compromise in 3 letters. Families are like that. Compromises wearing uniforms they didn't pick. A door across the hall cracked open. A college-age woman with a messy bun and the kindness of strangers squinted at me. "You okay, ma'am?" "I will be," I said, and discovered my voice had aged a decade on those stairs. "Just surprised the honeymoon, I guess." She winced. Yikes. That's the modern liturgy for empathy. Concise, accurate, and dress code casual. I gathered the cookies with the care I once used to gather Lego pieces, so Daniel wouldn't step on pain in the morning. My mind sprinted. When did he get engaged? Why didn't he call? Was there a fight I slept through? Academic phrase of the night. Motivated forgetting. How the brain buries what threatens the tidy story it's married to. Maybe mine had been burying for months. The sun finished its exit interview, and the corridor exhaled the day's heat. I sat long enough to hear my heartbeat lower itself into a chair. Then pride, the brittle kind, stood me up. I took the stairs down, each footfall a sentence I didn't want to say out loud. He didn't want me there. Outside, the air tasted like mesquite and late shifts. I perched on the curb with my overnight bag and the blue tin, which now wore grief crumbs. I told myself I'd Uber back to a motel, then told myself I was lying. I've always believed in two things: returning the grocery cart and waiting for the truth to walk into the parking lot under its own power. After 3 hours of pretending I was a statue, a burgundy Honda swung in. I knew the laugh that arrived first, my son's, round at the edges like it learned friendliness in our kitchen. He opened the passenger door for her, Vanessa Moore. She was the kind of beautiful that photographs correctly from every angle. Sunglasses perched in her hair like punctuation. Daniel held shopping bags. She held his attention like ownership papers. I stood up. Joints protested. Heart protested more. Daniel? He froze mid-stride the way a boy does when he knows the vase is broken and gravity is involved. Mom? The word arrived without a map. Vanessa's smile was practiced, the way hostesses learn to level a line of angry customers. You must be Evelyn, she said smoothly. I'm Vanessa. No hand offered, no warmth wasted. I came to surprise my son for his birthday, I said, and discovered the courage in naming your reason without apology. Imagine my surprise when I gestured toward the second-floor walkway. Your note beat me to it. Daniel's hand went to his hair. Teenage tell, veteran move. We were going to call, he said. We just got back from Cabo. Cabo, I repeated. The word tasted expensive. Vanessa's laugh tinkled like a chandelier no one asked for. It was divine, she said. The resort, 5 stars. The wedding, very exclusive. Only 800 people. Only 800. My jokes arrive late, like buses. If that's small, I'm a teacup that seats a stadium. If exclusivity invited 800, I guess oxygen made the list too. If guest counts are math, my calculator is filing for workers' comp. I looked at my son. He looked at the concrete. We invited only the most important people, Vanessa added, as if reading a menu item labeled cruelty, chef's choice. I heard the sentence 2 ways. As a proclamation and as a door lock clicking. I don't remember the next 30 seconds. Only the texture of my tote handle digging into my palm and the taste of something metallic behind my tongue. When my hearing returned from its brief boat ride, Vanessa was suggesting a motel. Very clean, very affordable, she said, like a Yelp review for humility. Elder wisdom of the day, 2nd installment. Humiliation is a poor teacher, but an efficient one. Daniel asked where I'd stay. He didn't offer the couch. This is the part where mothers on the internet will judge him. Let them. I have learned judgment is a hobby for the well-rested. I told him I'd figure it out. He said we could catch up later this week. The phrase landed like a paper airplane with a brick inside it. They walked inside together, and the door clicked shut. A punctuation mark no mother wants to read. I found a 24-hour diner across the street, bought coffee and a quiet booth, and set the blue tin beside the sugar packets like a relic. Linda Hayes, the waitress, moved like a woman with a doctorate in endurance. She topped off my cup without taking inventory of my face and said only, "Long day?" "Long enough to qualify for college credit," I said. She grinned. "Then you'll need pie." She was right. The apple was tart enough to argue, sweet enough to apologize. While the diner hummed its fluorescent lullaby, I opened my banking app, habit from the lean years when numbers were weather. Academic aside, the availability heuristic makes recent pains feel bigger. The trick is remembering you own a ruler. That's when I saw it. Daniel's business account, the one we opened together when his consulting dream needed my old-fashioned credit to give it legs. I was still an authorized signer. The balance had grown into 6 figures, which I celebrated silently. The recent withdrawals, ceremony, cabo, probably napkins that cost more than my prom dress, blushed the ledger red. There was a button, freeze account, 2 clicks, and a signature. The moral calculus arrived like a train. Whistle first, then the inevitable wait. I thought about Vanessa's most important people. About Daniel's eyes wandering anywhere but home, about 23 years of pancakes and permission slips. I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect. Those are different currencies, but sometimes they share a register. I pressed my thumb, wrote my name, and felt something settle, like a picture finally level on the wall. 3 closing jokes, because lungs. If dignity had a rewards program, tonight I'd finally earn a free night. If grief were cardio, I'd have Olympic calves. If affordable motel were a love language, I'd be fluent by now. I folded the receipt into the blue tin like a note to my future self. You are not invisible. You are inconvenient, in the best way. By dawn, the neon diner sign looked tired, like even electricity has eyelids. I'd nursed 3 cups of coffee and half a slice of pie while the world outside recalibrated. My phone buzzed for the first time at 7:47 a.m.
Daniel.
I let it ring. Again at 7:49, again at 7:52. By 8:15, the screen was a graveyard of missed calls and frantic texts. Mom, call me back. Something's wrong with my account. My cards aren't working. Mom, please, what did you do? I ordered another refill and signaled Linda Hayes, who arched an eyebrow but poured anyway. Family still giving you trouble? She asked, her orthopedic shoes squeaking. They're just now realizing trouble exists, I said, and took a long sip. Elder wisdom of the day. Panic travels faster through wires than respect ever does. At 8:30, an unfamiliar number appeared. I answered. Mrs. Carter, this is Karen Foster from First National Bank. I have Daniel Carter here with me, and we need to verify a freeze on his business account. You're listed as co-signer. I could hear Daniel in the background, agitated, pleading. Put him on. Mom? His voice cracked with panic. Why would you do this? I have payroll tomorrow. Contractors waiting. You can't just... I can, I said calmly, buttering a piece of toast I hadn't ordered. And I did, because respect is a 2-signature requirement, Daniel. You wanted me on your account when you needed my credit. Well, co-signers get a say. Academic phrase of the day. Asymmetric power. The stronger side forgets the weaker side has levers until one is pulled. What do you want? His tone had shifted, desperation replacing indignation. What did I want? A Sunday morning call again. The smell of pancakes. To not be erased. But you can't deposit longing. So I said, I want a real conversation. Just you and me. No Vanessa feeding you lines. Silence. Then, okay, where? The diner. 1 hour. I hung up before his excuses could catch up. 3 jokes I scribbled on a napkin to keep the air light. If missed calls were a loyalty program, I'd have a free blender by now. If panic were cardio, Daniel would be marathon ready. If respect had an app, I'd set my notifications to always on. At 9:25, 5 minutes before the agreed time, Vanessa Moore burst into the diner like a storm in designer denim. High heels cracked against linoleum. She scanned, spotted me, and stormed to my booth. What the hell do you think you're doing? She hissed, sliding in without invitation. Having breakfast, I said, folding my napkin like it was a chess move. Her eyes glittered sharp. You froze his account because you're jealous. That's pathetic. I smiled sweetly. Pathetic is suggesting a motel to the woman who raised your husband. The room quieted. Trucker stared. Linda pretended to polish a counter she'd already cleaned. Elder wisdom of the day. Silence in a diner is as sharp as a gavel. Vanessa leaned across the booth, her perfume sharp enough to sting. Unfreeze it, now! Daniel, has employees depending on him. You'll ruin everything. I cut my pancake deliberately, let the syrup run. Funny, I said. You didn't seem too worried about ruining me last night. Motel recommendations come cheap, apparently." Her face flushed scarlet. She lowered her voice, but the venom dripped. "You're possessive, needy. He told me how suffocating it was growing up with you, how he had to be the adult in the house." Elder wisdom of the day. Lies sound truest when they borrow from truths. Yes, I worked too much, and yes, he grew up fast. But he never carried me. I carried us. Did he tell you about the jewelry I sold to buy his first car? Or the 3 jobs I worked to pay tuition? Or the $500 a month I've quietly sent him for 5 years? Vanessa blinked. "What money?" I slid my phone across the table. Banking app, transfers highlighted. $500, recurring 60 months, total $30,000. Linda, pretending not to eavesdrop, whistled low. Vanessa's hands trembled as she shoved the phone back. "That doesn't matter." "Matters enough to buy the suit he wore to propose to you," I said softly. "Matters enough to remind you I'm not irrelevant. I'm invested." Academic phrase of the day. Sunk cost fallacy. Believing past investment requires future loyalty. Except in families, love isn't sunk. It's still floating, waiting for respect to climb aboard. 3 jokes scratched in syrup with my fork. If motherhood were a bank, my interest rates would be criminal. If respect were currency, Vanessa was bankrupt. If truth were pie, I just served her a slice she didn't order. The diner door banged open. Daniel rushed in, hair messy, eyes frantic. He nearly collided with Vanessa storming out, muttering curses. He dropped into the booth across from me. "Mom?" he whispered, voice breaking. "Please tell me it's not too late." Daniel sat across from me, shoulders hunched, hands pressed together like he was praying to a god he hadn't believed in for years. The golden boy polish was gone. What sat in front of me was my son stripped down to raw nerves. "Mom," he started, "you don't understand. The wedding, it wasn't supposed to be like that." "Which part?" I asked, voice steady. "The part where I didn't know you were engaged? Or the part where I wasn't invited?" He winced, running both hands through his hair, an old, teenage gesture I recognized from curfew arguments. Vanessa said, "She said you wouldn't approve, that you'd interfere, that mothers-in-law always cause problems." "Interfere?" I repeated. "By baking cookies? By wanting a seat at your table?" He flinched again. "She showed me messages, texts from you, long ones about missing me, wanting to be more involved. She said you were calling her directly, pressuring her." I leaned forward. "Daniel, I've never had her phone number. I don't text like that. My longest message is happy birthday." "Das nom to see." Silence. His eyes widened, pieces clicking into place. "But she showed me screenshots." Academic phrase of the day. Falsification bias. The ease with which evidence can be manufactured to confirm suspicion. "She lied to you," I said, "and you believed her." He sank back, whispering, "She lied." His voice cracked. "Oh, Mom, what have I done?" Elder wisdom of the day. Shame weighs more when it carries the shape of recognition. I reached across the table, covered his hand with mine. "What you've done is what anyone can do. Trusted the wrong person. What you do now matters more." 3 jokes, whispered just to keep breath moving. If gaslighting were a sport, Vanessa would be Olympic. If screenshots were gospel, then phones are pulpits. If trust were pie, his slice had been stolen. He looked at me, tears unmoving. "Mom, I think I married a stranger." He said it like a confession he'd kept behind his teeth for months. "I think I married a stranger." The diner hummed around us, forks clinking, a soft sizzle from the griddle, Linda's shoes whispering across linoleum. Morning light fell in stripes across our booth, like the room was trying to underline our sentences. "Then let's invite the stranger to speak," I said, nudging my phone toward him. "Call her. Put it on speaker. We'll keep it civil and short. Truth is allergic to shouting." He hesitated, then dialed. Vanessa answered on the first ring, voice honeyed and impatient. Did you fix it? Tell your mother to stop this nonsense. Send me the screenshots, Daniel said. The messages you said my mom sent you. A pause. The kind that smells like smoke before anyone yells fire. I deleted them, she said lightly. They were upsetting. Elder wisdom of the day. Things we delete often keep living where we don't want to look. Then forward the backups, I said, keeping my tone Sunday school calm. Photos, cloud, anything. We'll wait. I sipped coffee because patience tastes better when your hands are doing something. You don't get to make demands, Vanessa snapped. Daniel, hang up. We said we'd handle your mother together. He rubbed his forehead, the gesture of a man whose map no longer matches the roads. When did we say I couldn't talk to my mother alone? His voice steadied. Send the messages. Silence again. Longer. Heavier. No. He ended the call himself. The little red button felt like a door shutting on a drafty hallway. Odd fact of the day. The average person touches their phone over 2,000 times daily. Some touches are calls for help, so quiet even the owner can't hear them. Daniel stared at the tabletop, where a sugar packet had split and spilled its tiny storm. She had me convinced you were intrusive. Manipulation is efficient, I said gently. It preloads the answer key so every question looks like proof. Academic phrase of the day, cognitive dissonance. When our choices and our values argue in the kitchen at 2 a.m. and we decide which one sleeps on the couch. He swallowed. What do I do? Start choosing your values out loud. I slid a napkin to him, then a pen. 3 non-negotiables in ink. For you, not for her. He wrote slowly, like the words might bruise if he hurried. Honesty, family, autonomy. Good, I said. Now a plan. Step 1, you and I talk without Vanessa's narration. Step 2, we verify, not vibe. Step 3, we act, not apologize. He nodded, the first nod that didn't wobble. Linda arrived with fresh coffee and the world's most compassionate side of bacon. Refills? She asked. Her eyes took in our faces and decided to offer silence instead of advice, which is a rare kindness. 3 jokes to keep air moving in our little weather system. If red flags earned reward points, somebody would be flying first class for life. If gaslighting needed a permit, City Hall would have a line out the door. If deleted were honest, it would be spelled temporarily hiding where grandmas can't find it. About the account, Daniel said. Payroll is tomorrow. My team didn't do this. I did. You and Vanessa did, I corrected, then softened it with a palm over his knuckles. But your team is my business now too, because you made it so when you put my name on that line 5 years ago. He winced. I know. I'm asking, not demanding, if you'll unfreeze it after we meet with the bank, get a paper trail, and set rules. Rules love paper, I said. We can do that after we finish something else first. What? Call the bank. Ask Karen to note your file. No third-party access, ever, without you present in person and with a callback code. I tore the corner from the napkin and wrote a phrase. Make the code something I'll never say by accident. Persimmon lantern. He huffed a laugh. Why that? Because if you ever hear me say persimmon lantern in public, assume I've been kidnapped by a Victorian fruit salesman. He called the bank and, to his credit, read the words exactly. Karen repeated them back, precise as a metronome, then promised to flag the account. You could hear professionalism smile. When he hung up, he looked smaller and freer at once, like a man who just returned a heavy package marked fragile that wasn't his to carry. What next? Next, I said. I say a thing you won't like, and you try not to defend it. Okay. You didn't just believe lies, you outsourced discernment. You let a woman rent space in your head with a lease that excluded the person who raised you. He breathed out through his nose, a controlled, almost comic hiss. Noted. Good. Then we can graduate to the homework where you fire the landlord. He leaned back. If she sends fake screenshots, how do I prove they're fake? By not trying to win the past, I said. Prove the present. Set standards you both must meet. If she can't meet them, the problem identifies itself. He nodded again, steadier.
Okay. He swallowed. There's something else.
The ground in the diner shifted a millimeter, the way rooms do when the next sentence will rearrange all the furniture. She says she's pregnant, he whispered. 2 months, maybe 3. The coffee in my cup cooled a degree. I felt my face arrange itself into careful neutrality. How do you feel?
Scared, he said. Protective, trapped, and then guilty for feeling trapped.
2 things can be true, I said. We treat both. We don't let one bully the other.
He stared at the sugar spill like it could prophesy. If she is, I'll be there. I won't be the man who leaves.
I know, I said. That's precisely why you need the facts. Babies deserve the truth more than grown-ups do. He blinked. A test? A plan, I said. Medical confirmation, then counsel. You can love a child and still refuse to raise it inside a lie. He nodded, eyes glassy but not drowning. I'll ask.
Gently, I warned. Gently is harder to dodge. The phone buzzed again. Vanessa, we need to talk now. Then another. I'm not doing this dance with your mother. Choose.
He exhaled a long, tired laugh. She really typed, choose.
Odd way to spell goodbye, I said. Too dry to be sweet.
Academic footnote for anyone still taking notes. Approach avoidance conflict, when every path forward cuts you, and all the cuts are different shapes. Picking one is called adulthood.
He typed slowly, reading aloud so the words wouldn't wobble. Meeting the bank at noon. Then you and I will talk. With honesty, no scripts, and respect for all families involved. If that doesn't work for you, say so clearly. He set the phone down. The screen glowed a petulant blue and then went black. We spent the next 20 minutes building a boring masterpiece, a checklist. Bank. Unfreeze with conditions. Callback code, no third-party instructions, dual approval above X amount. Apartment. Retrieve documents. Laptop, passport, work. Loop in operations lead. Ensure payroll buffer for next cycle. Separate personal and business logins. Change passwords. Health, sleep, food, walk, repeat. Love needs glucose.
Why love needs glucose? He asked, half a smile. Because hungry people say yes to bad leases, I said. 3 more jokes. Because laughter is a screwdriver you keep in the kitchen drawer. If boundaries were a kitchen tool, they'd be a colander. Let water pass. Keep the pasta. If panic were a playlist, today's is just the same song louder. If dignity were a thermostat, we just turned it up 2 degrees. His phone lit again. I'm going to the hospital. I'm spotting. This is your mother's fault. The message sat there, accusing in Helvetica.
He pressed his fingertips to his eyes. I hate that my first thought is doubt.
That's because your second thought is compassion, I said. We will hold both. You'll go. You'll be kind. You'll ask for medical clarity and offer practical help that doesn't mortgage your soul. He breathed. Okay. I'll unfreeze the account after the bank meeting, I said. Payroll should not pay for grown people's bad weather, but we're adding rails.
He nodded. Thank you.
We stood in the parking lot a moment later under a sky so blue it looked photoshopped. He hugged me, the real kind, weight and warmth, no choreography. His breath shivered once against my shoulder. I'm sorry, he whispered into my cardigan. I know, I said. We'll handle the rest in sentences, not apologies. He pulled back, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, and almost laughed. You and your sentences. They're cheaper than Cabo, I said. He got into his car, then leaned out the window. Mom? Yes? Persimmon lantern, he said, managing a grin. Copy that, I answered, and watched him drive toward the first honest noon he'd had in months. When I slid back into the booth, Linda appeared with a to-go cup I hadn't ordered. On the house, she said. You're doing sacred paperwork. Feels like it, I said, and tucked the checklist into the blue tin, right on top of the recipe card in my mother's handwriting. The tin clicked shut with the satisfaction of a door that finally fits its frame. At noon, the bank lobby smelled like carpet cleaner and old coins. comforting in a stale sort of way. Karen Foster met us with the calm of a woman who has seen empires rise and fall between 9 and 5. "Let's get you both protected and your people paid," she said, sliding into a glass-walled room where the air conditioning believed in winter. We handled the boring first, the kind of boring that keeps lives from catching fire. I read aloud from our checklist while Karen typed. Callback code is Persimmon Lantern. No instructions ever by text or email. Dual authorization for anything above 5,000. Separate cards for payroll and operating expenses. Weekly statements to both of us, plus your operations lead, and a note on file. No third-party changes without Daniel present and ID'd.
Karen nodded, efficient fingers flying. "And who is the third party we're guarding against?" "The one who thinks choose is a love language," I said. She didn't smile, but her eyes did. Understood.
Odd fact of the day, the word ledger comes from Middle English legen, to lay down. We lay numbers down the way masons lay bricks, hoping the wall will hold when weather comes. Daniel signed where she pointed, hands steadier than this morning. I signed where history asked. Then Karen turned the screen so we could both see. Funds unfrozen, payroll queued, guardrails up. I let out a breath that did not know it had been holding its breath. "Thank you," I said, "for treating boring like sacred." "Boring is my favorite religion," she replied. 3 quick jokes to keep the room oxygenated. If boundaries were a kitchen tool, we just bought a bigger colander. If fraud were an art, we installed a museum guard. If respect were Wi-Fi, we finally changed the password. We walked out into noon that felt too bright for people who had just renegotiated gravity. Daniel squeezed my shoulder. "I'll head to the apartment. Grab documents, then." His phone buzzed. He stared at the screen and the light in his face changed. "I'm spotting. Going to the hospital. This is your mother's fault. Vanessa." He swallowed. "ER. She says it's because of today." I put a hand on his arm. "You go. Be kind. Ask for facts. I'll stay available and out of the splash zone." He nodded, then hugged me like the world might be slippery. "I'll call you from there." Hospitals carry their own weather. The ER waiting room was humming with fluorescent resolve and the smell of citrus disinfectant. I sat 2 chairs apart from a woman in scrubs eating crackers like therapy and stared at a vending machine whose buttons looked like choices in a bad dream. Elder wisdom of the day. Guilt is counterfeit responsibility. It looks the same in your hand until you try to spend it. Daniel texted updates from triage. "They've got her in a bed. Vitals okay, waiting for ultrasound." I could hear the beeps in his words. Academic phrase of the day. Fundamental attribution error. Blaming character for what belongs to circumstance. Vanessa wanted today's stress to equal today's symptom. Medicine is rarely that tidy. I kept my hands busy with a cup of coffee that tasted like hot intentions. 3 jokes for the waiting bench. If beeping were a symphony, hospitals would win Grammys. If hand sanitizer were perfume, I'd be irresistible. If vending machines dispensed patience, this room would be rich. He called from a quiet corner. I could hear the hinge of his breath. "They think the pregnancy is stable," he said. "Bed rest a few days. They're running labs. The doctor was measured." "Measured is where truth lives," I said. "Did you ask what stress can and can't do?" "Yes," he said, quoting, "We don't have evidence that emotional stress alone causes miscarriage. Most complications have multiple medical factors." He was careful, but clear. In the background, Vanessa's voice sharpened. "Ask her if she's proud. Ask your mother if she's happy now." Daniel covered the phone, then uncovered it. "She wants to talk to you." "I'll listen," I said. "Put it on speaker if you want it to be a sentence and not a script." He did. Vanessa's tone was fragile, wrapped around steel. "Evelyn, you did this. You froze our money, you ambushed our marriage, and now I'm in a hospital because you can't let go." "I'm sorry you're scared," I said first, "because compassion is not a resource you use up. And I'm glad the doctor says you and the baby are stable. As for the rest, I insisted on boundaries. Boundaries do not cause bleeding." "You don't get to decide what causes my body to..." "I don't. I said quietly. That's why I'm listening to your doctor and not my fear. I will bring food if you want, or I will disappear if that serves your rest. I will not agree that truth is violence.
Silence. You could hear the monitors thinking. Daniel stepped in. Vanessa, Mom's going to give us space. I'm going to stay for the scan. After that, we'll talk about counseling and what honesty looks like. If you want me in this with you, it starts with transparency. No more scripts.
She exhaled anger. I'm not being interrogated by the two of you like some criminal. Then don't act like one, he said, and I heard new muscle in his voice. I'll text you after the ultrasound. He ended the call, then the soft sound of his back meeting a wall.
How are you? I asked.
I hate this, he said. I hate that I care, and I doubt, and I care again. Two things can be true, I repeated. You can be gentle and firm. You can be present for a patient and present for yourself. He half laughed. You're going to embroider that, aren't you? Only if I can read it at a passive-aggressive craft fair. By dusk, he texted, stable. Bed rest at home. I'm picking up prescriptions. Can you meet me at the diner for 10 minutes? I beat him there because mothers beat people there. It's what we do. He slid into the booth, shoulders tired. She's convinced the solution is cutting you out again. Says the baby needs no negativity. The baby needs facts, food, and a father, I said. Negativity isn't a person, it's a pattern.
He nodded. I told her counseling. She said counseling is for people with problems. I said exactly.
We split a grilled cheese because comfort should be shareable. Next steps, I said. You sleep somewhere sane. Tomorrow you retrieve your documents and your laptop with a friend on standby. Consider changing your phone passcode. Keep every message. If she wants to involve the bank or the law, great. Systems are where manipulation goes to lose weight.
He rubbed his eyes. I'll book a hotel tonight.
I took out my blue tin, the good one. From beneath the recipe card, I slid a folded envelope. For you, I said. It's the last automatic transfer. We're closing that loop. Not because I don't love financing your dreams, but because your dream needs to stand on its own two legs now. He stared at the envelope. How do I say thank you without sounding 12? Say it like a contractor, I said, on time and under budget.
He laughed, real this time. Thank you.
We sat a while longer, letting the quiet do its knitting. Outside, late traffic stitched red lights into the dusk. Inside, Linda poured 2 decaf coffees like prayer. Before you go, I said, a strategy for tomorrow. I wrote 3 lines on a napkin and slid it across.
Name the behavior, not the person.
Ask for verifiable facts. Decide your boundary before the conversation. Academic encore, the Karpman drama triangle. Victim, rescuer, persecutor. She will try to cast you as rescuer, I said. When you refuse, she'll cast you as persecutor. Step off the stage. Be a problem solver, not a character. He tucked the napkin into his wallet like a map. I can do that. 3 last jokes for the road. If hospital coffee were a personality, it'd be trying its best. If guardrails had feelings, ours feel seen. If love were a ledger, tonight we balanced a column. He stood, then hugged me at the door. I'll text you in the morning. And Mom? He searched my face like it was a window he'd finally washed. I know whose side you're on now. Yours, I said. Which is not the same as against anyone. It's just yours. He left into a night that felt less like a threat and more like a long hallway with lights on timers. I walked back to the motel and laid the blue tin on the nightstand and the metal warm from my hand. Somewhere between the air conditioner's steady hum and a distant siren that didn't concern us, I slept like a person who had put boring bricks in the right places. I slept the way motel air conditioners promise you will. Steadily, with a low hum that pretends to be ocean. At 7:12 a.m., Daniel texted, hotel booked, meeting at my place 9 a.m. I'm bringing Jenna, ops lead, to witness and grab my files. I answered with a thumbs up and a sentence. Facts first, feelings later. Both will get their turn. By 9, the 3 of us stood outside apartment 2B. Jenna Park had the poise of a person who keeps businesses from burning down for a living. Neat ponytail, legal pad, voice pitched to calm. "We'll make one clean pass," she said. "Documents, laptop, passport, meds. We keep the temperature low." She nodded at me like I belonged on the team, and I did, even if my badge just said Mom. Vanessa opened the door with that cold politeness reserved for flight attendants and enemies. "You can take the laptop," she said, "but leave the narrative. Daniel, you scared me half to death yesterday." Elder wisdom of the day. When people can't own their choices, they'll try to rent yours. "We're here for essentials," Daniel said. His voice wasn't loud, it was anchored. "Then I'm going to my hotel. After that, counseling. If you want a future with me." She folded her arms. "I want a future without your mother in it." "Then you want a different future," he said simply, and stepped inside. Jenna moved like a metronome. Laptop, external drive, file box labeled tax, 2 binders, a passport that had learned to hide under socks. I stood by the kitchen island with my hands folded, studying the bowl of lemons like they could testify. Vanessa hovered, commentary turned down to a hiss. "Phone," Daniel said, holding out his hand. "I want to see the messages from my mother you showed me." She gripped hers tighter. "I deleted them." "Then show me the thread," he said. "If you blocked her or changed her name to something else, I'll see it in the contact card." He said it like a man who had Googled how to stop being naive at 2 a.m. She rolled her eyes, unlocked reluctantly, and slapped the phone into his palm. He scrolled. "There's no thread with Mom," he said. "No deleted conversation bubbles. Contact card shows no block history." He opened the Photos app, then the hidden album. Empty. Recently deleted? Clean. He opened files, no screenshots. He looked up. "Where did you get the messages you showed me?" "I airdropped them," she said too fast. "From your mother's phone when she visited." "I live in Texas," I said, quiet. "I haven't visited. You sent me to a motel, remember?" He scrolled again, slower. "Then from who?" Vanessa went still the way a deer does, hopelessly elegant and very bad at doors. Academic phrase of the day. Forensic linguistics, the study of how people write and what their words reveal. The text Vanessa had waved around last month had sounded like me if I'd been raised by a thesaurus and a villain. Too many commas, not enough honey, eat. He opened her cloud backups, tapped messages. A screen of toggles and last synced times. Odd fact of the day. People think delete means gone. In practice, it often means move to where the bored and determined can find it. He tapped again. An old export sat in a folder titled Proofs. Inside, screenshots of a chat labeled Evelyn Green Bubbles, mismatched timestamps, my name misspelled twice, and, my favorite tell, a blue bubble from me in a file that claimed to be Android. Jenna leaned in, professional even in her wince. "Those are fabricated," she said gently. "Wrong metadata and that misspelling, it's in everyone." Vanessa snatched the phone back, but the air had already shifted. "You don't get to audit my backups," she snapped. "Then don't present them as gospel," Daniel answered. "You told me my mother was harassing you. You told me she called you directly. She didn't. You told me she texted paragraphs. She didn't. You showed me proof you made." He opened mail. "And what's this?" Vendor confirmations. Cabo receipts. The venue deposit, the one that had bruised his business account, built from an email chain where Vanessa replied, "Per our discussion, Daniel's mother is not to be notified of the wedding or the date." Attached, a guest spreadsheet with 800 lines, column K labeled Family Exceptions. My row had an X. I didn't know spreadsheets could do that to a person. 3 jokes I coughed into my sleeve so they wouldn't break the furniture. If cruelty had an Excel add-in, it would be conditional formatting. If metadata were a cape, it would be today's superhero. If delete were honest, it would be called hide and seek. Daniel scrolled to messages again, past friends and clients, to a thread labeled with a first name I didn't recognize. He opened it. My stomach fell through the floor. The tone wasn't romantic, it was strategic. Isolating him is key. Mothers are always the weak point. Move the wedding fast before his extended family gets wind. Make the narrative about protection. The contact card belonged to Mark Whitaker, Vanessa's ex-husband. Daniel looked up slowly. "You've been texting Mark all year." "About logistics," she said, jaw set. "About me," he said. "About my mother. About how to manage someone you supposedly love." She tossed her hair. "We're adults discussing adult challenges." "Adults don't forge evidence," he said. "Adults don't stage weddings to exclude one parent by design." She tried to pivot the way dancers do when the music changes mid-step. "I'm pregnant," she said. "The stress isn't good for the baby. And that's precisely why we need truth more than ever," he said. "We'll confirm the pregnancy with medical records. We'll do a paternity test at the right time. We'll do counseling. And we'll stop pretending manufactured proof is a substitute for trust." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "If you walk out with your mother, don't walk back." Jenna, who had been a quiet camera the whole time, finally spoke. "Miss Moore, we're leaving with documents. If you try to block that, I'll call APD and we'll make a list with badges. Your choice." Her tone said she had done this before, which somehow made me want to bake her a cake. We finished the sweep. Daniel paused at the doorway, took a slow breath, and set a small envelope on the console table. "For your prescriptions," he said. "For today." He wasn't abandoning a patient, he was refusing to be the hospital. In the hall, he leaned against the wall and let his head thud lightly. "I feel disgusting," he said, "at myself." "Don't," I said. "Feeling duped proves you hoped. Hope is not the crime. Keeping it in the wrong house is." We rode the elevator in silence that felt like stitches. At the curb, Jenna squeezed his shoulder. "Text me the new passcodes. I'll reset third-party access everywhere. You go breathe." He nodded, then turned to me. "I want to file something," he said. "A statement. I don't want this to turn into a he said, she said with no paper." "Good," I said. "We like paper." We drove to a UPS store because bureaucracy needs fluorescent lighting. He notarized a brief account. Dates, what he saw, the fabricated screenshots, the ex-husband texts, the guest list line that took my breath. We scanned copies, emailed one to Jenna, put one in the blue tin like a promise with a receipt. Back at the hotel, we spread our lives on the tiny desk. Laptop, files, the checklist from last night. He changed passwords while I ordered food he'd actually eat. He put his phone on speaker and called his operations lead to ensure payroll would go out. Then he called Vanessa's OB office to confirm a patient record existed. It did. He politely asked about next steps for a non-invasive paternity test when medically appropriate. They explained timelines like professionals who do not care about drama, which is why I trust them. Academic phrase of the day. Patient update. When new evidence arrives, you adjust your belief in small, honest increments. Watching Daniel do it out loud was like watching a man return his borrowed voice. 3 more jokes, delivered like vitamins. If two-factor authentication were a dog, today it's a very good boy. If spreadsheets could apologize, column K owes me flowers. If hope were a socket wrench, we just found the right size. That evening, he texted Vanessa exactly once. Documents retrieved. Hotel booked. I will be present for your appointments and for the child if it's mine. Counseling is a condition for any reconciliation. No more fabricated evidence. No more isolation. If you agree, say so. If not, say that too. He stared at the screen as if it might lie to his face. It didn't. It just glowed, then dimmed. We sat on the edge of the hotel beds, 2 people at 2 different ages learning the same lesson. I reached for his hand. "This part is the ugly middle," I said, "not the end." He nodded.
Tomorrow, I'll tell her I'm filing for a separation. I'll schedule counseling for me anyway. I'm done outsourcing discernment. I kissed his knuckles like he was 5 and had just survived a scary movie. There's my boy. Outside, Austin pulsed with the Friday night optimism of people who believe tomorrow can still be kinder. I believed it too. Not because stories are neat, but because truth, once it starts breathing, is stubborn. The first night Daniel slept at the hotel, I didn't. I lay awake listening to the air conditioner breathe like a tame animal and watched the red digits on the clock change their minds. Pregnancy adds gravity to every conversation. You feel it in your molars. Daniel texted at 12:17 a.m. Tomorrow, separation paperwork. Counseling at 3. I'll be at the OB check at 10. We'll call you after. I typed back, facts first, kindness second. Negotiations third. In that order. Morning came with motel coffee that tasted like optimism with trust issues. I walked to the diner anyway. Linda slid a mug toward me before I sat. "How's your boy?" she asked. "Learning how to be one again," I said. "It's a full-time job." Elder wisdom of the day: fear loves to bargain with the future. It will offer you imaginary peace if you pay with your boundaries today. At 10, Daniel called from a hallway that echoed. "They confirmed a viable pregnancy," he said, voice low, controlled. They measured dates. The nurse practitioner said non-invasive paternity testing is possible later, 8 to 10 weeks, through a lab with chain of custody. She recommended an attorney for consent forms. "Good," I said. "Evidence with paperwork is a calmer kind of evidence." The word viable rang in my ear like a bell you don't know whether to celebrate or brace for. Odd fact of the day: ultrasound machines use high-frequency sound waves to map soft tissue. It's music we can't hear, drawing pictures we can, like a lullaby translated into charcoal. By noon, he'd met with an attorney who spoke fluent calm. They sketched a temporary separation agreement. Finances independent, communication in writing, medical updates shared, counseling mandatory if reconciliation remained on the table. He asked for 2 things I hadn't thought to put into words. No more contacting his colleagues, and no more triangulating me in any conversation unless I'm present. Academic phrase of the day: triangulation. When 2 people recruit a third to manage tension that actually belongs between them. It looks like balance and functions like sabotage. Vanessa replied to the proposal with a message so long it needed stairs. "You're abandoning me in a medical crisis. Your mother is turning you against me. The baby deserves a whole family. Choose who you love." She attached a photo of her wristband from the ER with a caption that could have doubled as a threat and a plea. Daniel forwarded it to me with a single line: "I will not choose by cutting out conscience." We met at my motel's tiny table and spread legal pads like we were about to draft the Constitution. He'd already changed his phone passcode, moved 2-factor authentication to a new email, and asked Jenna to reset administrator rights on the company's shared tools. We wrote scripts, literally words in quotes, for the next conversations. "With her?" he asked. "With yourself," I said. "Then with her." He practiced. "I'm committed to any child who turns out to be mine. I'm not committed to a marriage built on fabricated evidence. We'll let tests and counseling guide the next decisions." He practiced again. "I will be present, generous, and firm. I will not be manipulated by deadlines I didn't set." His voice steadied on the 3rd repeat, like a floor that had stopped listing. 3 jokes to keep his lungs honest. If ultimatums were vitamins, Vanessa is very concerned about his bone density. If settings had a no triangulation toggle, we just found it. If boundaries were a streaming service, we finally canceled auto-renew. The afternoon counseling session startled him, in a good way. The therapist asked what I feel in my body when I read her texts. He said afterward, almost laughing. "No one's asked me about my body since high school sports." I said shallow breath, clenched jaws, shoulders near my ears. "That's your weather app," I said.
It predicts storms earlier than your head. He nodded. We set goals. Differentiate my guilt from my responsibility. Respond instead of react. Define what a good co-parent would look like, even if I end up not being one. He paused. Mom, I'm scared I'll lose the baby if I stand up to her. You can't lose what isn't yours, I said gently. And you can't keep what doesn't want you without losing yourself. Either way, truth is the safest crib. That night, Vanessa posted a filtered photo of her hospital bracelet with a caption about toxic elders and protecting our little family. She didn't name us, but she geotagged Austin and used a hashtag that might as well have. Friends sent heart emojis. One wrote, "Cut out the drama, babe." I closed the app like a curtain. Elder wisdom, second cup. The internet is a very loud room where whispers are microphones and microphones are mirrors. Don't take legal advice from a comment section. The days that followed were administrative and exhausting. Daniel filed for a legal separation. Her attorney responded with a letter that sounded like a sore throat. He opened a new personal account at Karen Foster's bank. We attached guardrails that would have made a roller coaster jealous. Vanessa alternated between weeping voicemails and steel cable texts. He responded with one-paragraph messages drafted in therapy, calm, factual, time-stamped. At the next OB appointment, they scheduled the paternity test for the earliest ethical window. Consent forms read like a foreign language exam. He signed anyway, each signature a small act of adulthood. He asked the nurse to explain chain of custody twice until she smiled and said, "I wish more people did." Odd fact encore: the lab packages maternal blood and cheek swabs like precious cargo, labels each step so tightly that a board auditor couldn't find a place to yawn. I respected that. I respect any system that assumes people will be people and builds mercy for the mess without sacrificing the math. At home, my temporary home, the motel with the loyal air conditioner, I sat on the bed and watched the blue tin on the nightstand catching the room's dim light. I thought about the night on the curb outside to be, and I let the ache arrive without a chorus. Under the ache was something sturdier than anger. It was the sense that love and truth had finally chosen the same table and were passing each other the salt. Linda noticed the difference. "You're breathing lower," she said at breakfast. "That means the worst weather has already passed, even if it rains again." "Where'd you learn that?" I asked. "Waitressing," she said, "and 3 husbands." We laughed. She slipped me a slice of pie I didn't order and called it preventative medicine, which is what I've always suspected pie is. Academic encore. Intermittent reinforcement, the most powerful training schedule in psychology. Reward unpredictably, and a person will keep pulling the lever long after the machine stops paying. Daniel and I agreed to stop being levers. We would replace variable rewards with consistent truths, even if the truth on a given day was, "We don't know yet." On the 7th night, 1 week from the note on the door, I slept all the way through until the light found me. Dreamless. When I woke, the phone was still. The relief felt borrowed, but it fit. We were in the ugly middle. But the middle, unlike the end, lets you edit. The morning the results were due, the motel air conditioner purred like a compliant cat. I brewed the in-room coffee anyway, which tasted like ambition filtered through cardboard, then walked to the diner for something kinder. Linda slid a mug toward me the second the bell over the door translated me into her world. "Today's the day?" she asked. "Today's the day," I said. My voice had that bright, soft tone people use in hospital hallways. Hope with good manners. Daniel texted at 9:03 a.m. Chain of custody complete. Nurse says, results will post to the portal by noon. I asked for a printed copy with signatures. He attached a photo of barcoded envelopes in a form that had more signatures than a yearbook. Odd fact of the day: modern paternity tests don't read one dramatic gene like television. They analyze thousands of tiny markers, a choir of probabilities that sings yes or no with astonishing harmony. He met me at a picnic table behind the bank, a quiet corner where live oaks made shade with a generosity I aspire to. We put our phones face down like students in a serious class. I asked the lab not to email me a teaser, he said. I wanted facts, not jump scares. Elder wisdom of the day. When truth finally knocks, open the door with both hands. One hand leaves room for denial. We waited. Waiting has a specific gravity, thickens the air between sentences. I made 3 jokes to keep our lungs honest. If suspense burned calories, I'd fit my college jeans by noon. If lab portals were theme parks, this line needs a snack cart. If truth were a delivery service, I'd tip extra for curbside. At 12:07 p.m., both phones chimed. The kind of chime that sounds like a gavel when you want it to be a bell. Daniel entered his password, then the second one, because adulthood now comes with sequels. He scrolled, then stopped, then didn't breathe. I put my palm on the table, steady as furniture. He turned the screen so the words looked me in the face. Black on white, no adjectives. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. Conclusion. Daniel Carter is excluded as the biological father. We didn't speak for the length of 2 complete breaths. The wind rearranged the oak leaves like someone rustling a long skirt. His exhale arrived first, ragged and honest. He pressed thumb and forefinger to his eyes like he was unscrewing panic from behind them. I feel awful, he said, and relieved, and awful for feeling relieved. Those aren't enemies, I said. They're roommates who haven't learned to share a bathroom. Academic phrase of the day, cognitive dissonance. The ache when 2 truths pull at opposite sleeves. The medicine is behavior that honors both. Compassion for a child, boundaries for the adults. He printed the PDF, signed the receipt for the notarized copy, and tucked both into a folder, like you tuck a sleeping baby, careful with corners. We texted his attorney, who replied with measured sentences that functioned like handrails. File to rescind presumptions. Ensure no legal acknowledgement was signed. Communicate through counsel. Keep all medical updates. You may still want them as a matter of empathy. Counselors and trees have something in common. They shade you without asking where you've been. Vanessa called 15 minutes later. He put it on speaker because secrets had done enough damage. The lab is wrong, she said without greeting. Those tests make mistakes. We'll get another one. Your mother jinxed it. Chain of custody lab, Daniel said gently. Signed by the technician, nurse, me. The result is clear. You wanted this, she snapped. You and your toxic mother willed this into existence. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for me? I do, he said. I also have an idea how humiliating it was to exclude my mother from my wedding and fabricate evidence to keep her out of my life. That was different. Different how? He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Calm was doing the heavy lifting now. Silence, then a pivot sharp enough to cut. Fine. It's Mark's. He's stable, he's kind, and he doesn't have a suffocating parent in the background. Maybe that's what I need. There it was. The name we already knew from her phone. Truth stepping out of costuming. I want you healthy, Daniel said, and I wish you a partner you don't need to manage. I'll pay today's pharmacy bill and any copays already incurred, and I'll pick up a week of groceries. After that, separate finances as agreed. I'm filing for divorce, no fault, no public drama. Please communicate through counsel. You'll abandon a pregnant woman? She hissed. I won't abandon a child, he said. If I were this baby's father, I would show up for every appointment and keep showing up for 18 years. But the test says I'm not. I'll show up today with groceries and compassion. I won't show up as a husband in a marriage built on lies. She hung up without a goodbye. The screen returned us to the dignity of grass and heat. We sat there, letting the day be exactly what it was. Complicated and honest. Linda materialized like she'd negotiated a truce with physics. I brought pie, she said, placing a to-go box beside the folder. Don't argue. We weren't planning to, I said. Good, she said. Arguing with pie never ends well. We ate quietly, the way you do at wakes and weddings. He stared at the fork like it held an oracle. I feel like I wasted a year, he said. You learned a year, I answered. Tuition was steep. He half smiled. If life offered a refund policy, it would be store credit. We did the next right things in boring order. He forwarded the result to his attorney. He updated the separation filing to a dissolution. He messaged Jenna to confirm his access at work was tidy and contained. He changed the locks on his digital life, one password at a time, until the tremor left his hands. Odd fact, Encore, the word decision shares a root with incision, to cut away. Ends don't always look like fireworks. Sometimes they look like neat, necessary lines. By late afternoon, Vanessa posted another bracelet photo with a caption about choosing peace. The comments were syrupy and fierce as the internet prefers. We didn't reply. We sat in my motel room while the air conditioner narrated, and we wrote a letter he may or may not send one day. A letter to a child who might exist, explaining why kindness and truth sometimes live in different houses. 3 more jokes to remind the room it had oxygen. If lab portals had a ringtone, today's was "It's not you, it's DNA." If boundaries were an Olympic sport, our event is the parallel lines. If adulthood had a merch table, it would sell clipboards and antacids. At dusk, we drove by the apartment complex to retrieve a box of cookbooks he wanted and a pair of shoes he didn't need but liked. The parking lot glowed sodium orange. The pool glimmered that peculiar blue that always looks a little radioactive at night. We didn't go upstairs. Boundaries include gravity. He pulled into the motel lot, put the car in park, and looked at me with a face that belonged to both the boy and the man. I want Sundays back, he said. Not as a rerun, as a new season. We'll start with soup, I said. Soup forgives mistakes. He laughed, real, round, the one that had lived in my kitchen for 18 years. Deal. You bring soup, I'll bring verbs. On my nightstand, the blue tin caught the lamp's glow like a small planet that had decided to stay. I slid the signed result into a new tab because I've learned that even good endings deserve good filing. Elder wisdom, final pour. Peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the confidence to label it, file it, and go make soup anyway. Academic coda, Bayesian update, revisited. Our posterior belief in Daniel the man had just shifted upward with a satisfying click. He had stood in front of truth without flinching, carried compassion without surrendering himself, and chosen a future where love and honesty share the same address, even if that address is 2 people and a pot of soup. Outside, Austin's Friday night made its neon promises. Inside, a mother turned off the lamp and let the dark be quiet, knowing the next morning had chairs at the table for both truth and breakfast. By Saturday morning, the sky over Austin looked freshly ironed, crease-free blue, sunlight pressed to a polite medium. Daniel and I met at the storage unit where he'd stashed the things that felt like him. The cast iron skillet with history baked into it, a box of dog-eared paperbacks, the framed photo of Thomas teaching him to ride a bike in sneakers too white for the occasion. We loaded the car in the kind of silence that isn't empty. It's just working. At the courthouse annex, he signed the last page of the dissolution packet with a steady hand. Odd fact of the day, the word divorce shares roots with diverge, to turn in a different direction. There's a cruelty in that etymology, and a mercy. You don't have to hate a road to admit it's not taking you home. We didn't linger for drama. We drove to a small apartment complex closer to my motel, the kind with balconies big enough for herbs and conversations. He picked a unit with morning light in the kitchen. For Sundays, he said, and I heard the boy under the man and the man he was trying to become. Elder wisdom of the day, peace likes routines. It sneaks in on the same schedule as breakfast. The afternoon was practical theology. Utilities, Wi-Fi, a mattress that didn't argue with his back. We set up a simple desk. He arranged his monitors. I wiped down a fridge that had never sinned. He logged into the company portal and removed administrator access that didn't belong to him. Then he did something I wasn't expecting. He wrote a short, human email to his team. No gossip, just gratitude and clarity. Academic phrase of the day: procedural justice. The idea that fair processes matter as much as outcomes. People work better when they can see the rails.
Groceries? I asked, like the mother I am. We kept it humble: eggs, broth, carrots, rice, apples, coffee that didn't taste like regret. 3 jokes to keep the cart from wobbling. If adulthood had a mascot, it would be a reusable bag with receipts. If boundaries were seasoning, we finally found the salt. If hope were a pantry item, it'd be shelf-stable and on sale.
His phone buzzed a few times that evening. Attorney, Jenna, a high school friend who'd seen the bracelet post and had the decency to text, "Are you okay?" Vanessa's messages came through counsel now, which is its own kind of quiet. He asked me to stay for soup. I texted Linda, and she sent us home with 2 slices of forgiveness pie, which should be a menu item everywhere. We ate on the floor, as is apartment tradition. He told me about counseling, about naming the parts of himself that negotiated with fear like it was a landlord. "I keep thinking I wasted everyone's time," he said. "You invested in a lesson most people audit and fail," I answered. "The tuition was steep. The certificate is boundaries." When the dishes were done and the windows reflected us back at ourselves, he pulled a shoebox from the hall closet. Inside, the ring he'd chosen in a hurry, the other half of the proposal receipts. 2 printed photos from Cabo where his smile looked photoshopped onto a stranger. He closed the lid and put the box on a high shelf. "Not to forget," he said, "to stop tripping over." On Sunday, he came to my motel with a bouquet that looked like a freshman attempt at flowers, earnest and slightly confused. We moved to my place for real food. I stirred a pot and narrated like a cooking show for the sleep-deprived. Onion, garlic, grace, carrots, celery, patience, broth, Reese, the future. The kettle insisted on being musical at 6:10 a.m., even though it was 11:30. Appliances love a bit. We set 2 bowls, then 3. "For your father," I said, tapping the empty place lightly. We ate. Soup forgives. So do people sometimes on the installment plan. He asked if I'd move to Austin for a while, just to see if the map of us fit the city better when we drew it together. I said yes, without the performance of pretending to consider it. We found a modest duplex 10 minutes from his office and 3 from a park where oak trees make shade generous enough to pass around. I signed a short lease with a pen that knew my hand. The blue tin took its rightful place on the kitchen shelf. We did boring things beautifully for a few weeks. Library cards, dentist appointments, a standing Wednesday dinner where we failed new recipes under controlled conditions. He went to counseling and learned to identify the moment choice appears disguised as habit. I started a small Saturday circle at the community center, the kind with tea and handouts and chairs in a forgiving oval. Receipts, not rumors. How to keep your life yours. I taught older folks how to set callback codes, freeze credit, and laminate phone trees without laminating their hearts. They taught me how to tell a story so the parts that hurt don't get to be the only parts. We didn't ghost compassion. When counselor approved and calendar appropriate, Daniel had 2 brief check-ins with Vanessa through counsel, not to relitigate, just to ensure no medical loose ends needed tying. He paid what he'd promised to pay. He didn't pay what he hadn't. He didn't visit the apartment. He didn't insult her online. When friends wanted the messy version, he said, "We were a bad fit and I learned a lot." Truth can be both economical and kind. On the first real Sunday in the new rhythm, we carried soup to his new kitchen. We ate at a table this time, chairs acquired, sunlight behaving. He lifted his bowl, the boy and the man perfectly overlapped. 2 Sundays, he said.
To Sundays, I echoed, and to verbs. Later, walking back to my place, I realized the air had changed. Not the temperature, the grammar. The city was using present tense again. I didn't grip my tote like a flotation device. I didn't look for a door note. I looked for stars.
Odd private fact. The first night I slept in that duplex, I dreamed of bakery racks filled with quiet loaves, orderly, fragrant, waiting. The dream felt like a promise delivered without fanfare.
By month's end, papers were served, and Jenna texted a photo of Daniel leading a meeting where the slide deck matched the words coming out of his mouth. Karen Foster waved from the bank lobby when I passed on my way to the post office. We compare callback codes the way grandmothers compare recipes now. Linda visited and declared my kitchen soup certified, a title she takes seriously. The last thing I'll say before we slow down, I did not get my old life back. I got a life that knows more verbs: stay, ask, verify, feed, rest, forgive, label, laugh. It turns out you can build something enduring from words like those. You can even sleep. Let's dim the room for a moment. Let the sentences lengthen and the edges blur, the way late evening softens even the sharpest furniture. It started with a door note and a blue tin rattling with cookies and ache. It moved through a diner where coffee kept time, a bank where boring became holy, a hospital where beeping measured fear but not love, and a desk where a young man wrote his name beside a different future. Along the way we chose rails, callback codes and chain of custody, dual authorization and laminated scripts, counseling that asked where in the body the weather begins, soup on Sundays repeating like prayer. We didn't conquer anyone. We didn't burn anything down. We filed, we signed, we stacked papers that told the truth even after our voices went to sleep. We made space for compassion without renting out our judgment. We learned to let tests say what tests can say, and silence say what silence kindly refuses to say. When the chorus of noise on the internet wanted a villain, we handed it a pot of soup and kept walking. If you're listening in the half-dark and wondering whether your own house can learn this kind of quiet, hear this. Peace is not theatrical, and safety isn't loud. They arrive the way good bread cools, slowly, with patience, with proof. Label a folder. Pick a callback word, so silly you'll smile when you say it. Ask for processes that respect you. Gather the people who will sit at your table and eat from bowls that don't match and still call it a feast. Now, if your fan is humming, let it be a small river. If your lamp is low, let it be a moon. Close the blue tin. Turn the page. Sleep. I'll be here when morning needs sentences again.